G'day guys, welcome to this week's weekly developer update. I'm CW, and joining me once again we have Armeanio. How are you, mate?
Doing pretty well. Good week.
Yeah, it's been a pretty exciting week. A lot of discussions about what's happening in the Ergo ecosystem, a number of dApps and everything coming to light, and one of those, it's on the tip of everyone's tongue at the moment, is Rosen Bridge. So maybe we can dive in there and have a bit of a discussion about what it is, how it operates, etc.
Most bridges in the space operate in, I guess, similar assumptions, right? Where you lock an asset in one ecosystem, and then you unlock some synthetic asset that is backed by the original asset on the original chain. So it's like this idea, I'm going to call it an IOU, right? It's the simplest way for people to look at that, right? Now, the problem when you get into IOUs is when things are disrupted. A lot of the times the quote unquote backing to the IOU can disappear, and then you have this worthless IOU that's not redeemable for anything.
Yep.
Essentially, that's what's happened in multiple bridge hacks, right? And so, we kind of have been on this bridge journey for like 2 years, where we were building in one framework, and then there's an exploit somewhere, and we have to look at it and say, okay, well, does this have good assumptions? It seems not, right? There's an exploit.
Yep.
And they pivot to a new strategy, and learned a lot along the way. It's the bottom line. So, we came up with this idea, why don't we make something that's ergo-centric, where the smart contract logic that's on chain is ran on Ergo. And instead of using a oracle to try to look on one chain and broadcast information to the other, which kind of creates this point-to-point vulnerability, why don't we create a distributed network of people that are watching? And the idea is to create pre-knowledge prior to settlement, right? So everything that's transferred via Rosen, people should have the ability to reach some distributed consensus about what is happening before it happens, instead of something happens and then we find out about everybody's money's gone, and then we try to figure out what happened, right?
Oops. Yeah.
Oops. And, it's good in a way that people are skeptical of bridging, because, you're talking hundreds of millions, billions of dollars of value that's been exploited, right?
Yeah.
And that's not acceptable. So, we kind of have to say, okay, well, what are the weaknesses? And, one thing that we run into is when you have smart contract logic on both sides, your vulnerability scale as the bridge scales.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Very true.
And so as your bridge scales, you get new potential attack vectors, which then, okay, it's like, well, if you're going to audit that, now every time you add a new chain, you have to go through that auditing process, and the expense gets quite high. So why don't we create one backend and then create an off-chain network of watchers that can kind of manage the, I guess, knowledge of what is supposed to happen before it happens.
Yeah, in a distributed sense as well, where basically anyone can spin up and run that infrastructure on the watcher set.
Yeah, know the truth before something happens, right? That's kind of the goal there, is if a guard decides to disagree with the consensus that the watcher network came to,
yep,
it's going to be pretty obvious, right? And then you put kind of an economic punishment on that actor, where it's going to be pretty severe if a guard ever, let's say, tries to manipulate that. Yeah.
So just on that, the watcher and the guard set, seen a couple of comments around just on the speed of a transaction. Let's dive into that a little bit and talk about that, because it's a little bit different to it's quite a bit different to what bridge infrastructure that we've seen previously in the ecosystem, in the industry.
So the goal with Rosen is to create distributed consensus before execution, right? And distributed consensus takes time, which in a way, time is your friend when you're talking about these type of systems. Because if someone tries to put in, like a fraudulent transaction or a transaction that's in a network that may get forked or rolled back or something, time is working on your side. So it does offer better security assumptions. Now, we do have this industry that, loves fast and quick, which is great until it breaks and billions of dollars are gone, right? That's fundamentally been a problem. So Rosen is not designed to be fast, but it's designed to be secure in terms of having that distributed source of truth prior to execution. Yeah. So you get a lot of double checking, you get a lot of redundancy, and redundancy takes time, but redundancy is a very good, and it's an old-fashioned security principle.
Yep, that's it. You can have multiple confirmations, got different people looking at those confirmations and confirming that it's actually happened on chain, and it allows everyone to reach consensus on what actually has happened, or if it did indeed happen. So a lot of people, like you did mention, they want the fast, shiny new car and everything like that, but the old reliable one that gets you from A to B with no issues, that's what you want.
And, we have a pretty unique reward system that's being built in. Yep. On one hand, you have like a type of proof of work where people are paid per event, right? Yep. Something happened, there was work performed, so rewards and profits from fees are distributed, right? On another side, you kind of have this proof of stake style consensus where everybody has to have skin in the game, and they have to put their money on the table if they're going to be a part of the network. And if they are a dishonest actor, well, having money on the table, may not, let's say, be too fun when people get kind of slashed.
Yeah, once their hit pocket sort of takes that initial sort of hit, that's when they'll actually be pulled into line, because having that economic incentive or disincentive there is what really happens. Or the disincentive there to make people not be nefarious actors.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. It's something that you get into this idea of multi-sig, and multi-sig is, well, you look at Chainlink, right? And that's a pretty popular DeFi protocol, and it's 5 of 9. You look at a lot of roll-ups in the space that secure more value than our current market cap by magnitude. Yeah. And you get into pretty small multi-sig sets, right? Now Rosen can scale to the point where you're talking about number out of 30, right? Potentially, and at that point you have not only a very robust multi-sig as kind of the final settlement, but you also have this decentralized set of watchers that are basically providing pre-knowledge. Yeah. So everyone can see that on chain.
Yeah, it's a unique infrastructure setup, and the way it's all distributed and everything like that. I don't think we've seen anything like this in the industry so far. So touch wood, everything sort of runs smoothly. We've seen the initial public testing and everything going on now, and seen a lot of reports where people have had successful transactions and everything like that go through, which is great to see. So we talked about time a little bit earlier, but time's a deciding factor on the sort of the security and everything like that on the bridge itself as well.
Yeah, and we've pulled in some meme coins, the dog coins, joined the bridging effort. And one nice thing about those communities is they tend to actually be pretty engaged, right? We did actually see a lot of testing. Maybe it's because there's nothing at stake, or maybe they're just excited, right? Let's see.
Oh, yeah. The wolf pack's going to be after you. Nothing at stake.
Well, that's their whole thing, right? Drug me. So let's see. I was pretty excited to see that level of participation, though.
Yeah, most definitely.
I have to give a shout out to the dog coins that participated. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks to everyone. If there is any feedback, whether good or bad, it's always welcome because it just adds to the robustness of the ecosystem, of the industry, of the protocol. Yeah, whether it's user experience, something goes wrong, a transaction fails, anything like that, by all means, reach out to the Rosen team and let everyone know.
Yeah, please.
All right. On that note, let's jump into the dev update. So who do we have first? It looks like, well, we've got Rosen Bridge straight off the bat. So MHS has provided an update. Do you want to jump on this one?
Sure. So for the Rosen Bridge, looks like they went through the public beta launch. We're going to launch the beta version of Rosen Bridge for all users from now. It's available at beta.rosenbridge.tech. Currently, we support Erg and Comet on Ergo and Ada and Hosky on Cardano. And yeah, the Comet and the Hosky, let's say, investors did great at playing with the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Let's see, on Rosen clients, finished the implementation of all 3 client packages and published them to NPM registry. The packages are all available publicly. We encountered some issues related to the conversion of numbers to big ints in the APIs and types. After some trial and error, we finally preferred to write our own code mod to change all of the number types to big ints. The new fixed versions will be available soon on NPM. We will also make the repositories public on GitHub in a few days. With Rosen Bridge TS Guard service, the event processor module of guards also was refactored. Needs updates of Rosen chains to release, which is in unit test development stage. Also, another update is needed in Rosen Bridge tokens. And with Rosen Bridge minimum fee config, the Rosen ratio divisor was updated in minimum fee package, which was needed to support high decimal assets. This will be used in the beta version. With Rosen chains, it looks like most of the Cardano chain implemented according to abstract classes. So Rosen chains updates are not yet applied to it.
Yeah, there's quite a lot going on behind the scenes, isn't there, with all this infrastructure? Because
yeah, there's a lot of infrastructure supporting Rosen. It's actually a pretty expansive project beyond just let's say this multi-sig assumption idea, right?
Yeah, that's just one small part. How consensus is reached and double checked and basically having people's homework checked multiple times and things. It's a lot going on behind the scenes. Okay, scrolling down, next up we have greenhat, and on his progress, mostly finished the tuple expression support in box register values and updated box register access APIs. You can see that on the PR 702, and work in progress on the off-chain code for Oracle Reward Token buyback from the LP. There's a link there on the Ergo forum. You can check that out. Then next up, we'll fix the rest of the newly discovered issues, so number 262, and test the new governance, so simplified voting in the gold Erg pool on testnet. Next up, we have Luivatra.
All right, looks like with Paideia beta, he says it's a bit boring of an update, just working on contracts, working on optimizing the operations on the AVL trees. Still expected to deploy beta on-chain next week. If on-chain testing goes well, I will start working on connecting the front end to the contracts. That's great to see. I don't think Paideia is boring at all, to be honest. I have to disagree.
It's
I think that on-chain governance and that type of accountability is really going to be something that forces projects to mature.
Yeah, quickly,
and that's
well.
a good thing. Yeah, and that's a good thing. So I don't think it's so boring.
having everything on-chain auditable, control of treasuries and everything like that. And the ease of use of how to be able to spin up a DAO. I think that's one of the big things that can be utilized to great effect. Okay, following Louis, we have Morphic, an update on the Sigma side. So Sigma version 5.0.8 has been released. Sorry, I think that'll be 5.0.7, bit of a typo there. And then one PR for 5.0.8 has been created and merged. The second PR towards 5.0.8 is a work in progress. And on the Ergo side, has upgraded the Sigma version in the Ergo node and tested the Ergo node full sync with Sigma 5.0.7. On the AppKit, has also upgraded AppKit to Sigma version 5.0.7 and will be released after Ergo version 5.0.10 of the Ergo node. And next up, we'll finish the PR towards Sigma 5.0.8 and implement multisig in the AppKit based on EIP 11.
Nice to see. All right, next we have Alex. So looks like the Ergo protocol and reference client development update. He's reviewed PRs for and finalized 5.0.10 candidate. He's proposed review for the last part of bootstrapping with the UTXO set snapshot before the networking. He's also preparing the networking, which is the last part of bootstrapping with UTXO set snapshot. So he's pulled a couple things in there. He's reviewing PRs for Sigma. He's also reviewing EIP 44 and EIP 45, one of which is about message signing, and the other is about more even storage rent reward distribution, basically doing some smoothing to where you kind of pay from a distribution contract, which could make rewards a bit more even, which makes some economic sense out there. So after that, we have Dexy doing code for LP swaps to test free mint and intervention bank actions. He's polishing the white paper, made a roadmap for what is left for the contracts, is coordinating off-chain and front-end development, and with ChainCash, he's polishing the white paper and doing a bit of coding.
As always, Mr. Kushti's busy. Just have to make mention also that you actually got the UTXO set snapshot out a little bit easier than what I did last week. So it's good to see that.
Twister. I had to think about it. I won't lie. I was revisiting my head last week before I got there.
And also ERP 44 and 45 would probably be good to start the actual discussions and continue discussions around storage rent. They'll be coming up pretty quickly, a couple of months' time now. So get that discussion happening. Okay, scrolling down. Next, we have Ilya from Spectrum. On the Spectrum core side, working on the Spectrum consensus implementation, has made mocks of the necessary functions for generating random and select an epoch consensus group and a slot leader. So it's also working on assembling everything into a single protocol. Has added support for one-shot messaging without establishing a persistent two-way communication channel into the Spectrum P2P for more efficient handle aggregation. Onto the Spectrum Finance on Ergo side. That's fixing various bugs in the bots. It's a work in progress. Squashing more bugs in the bots as public tests are winding up. Also a work in progress. Has implemented continuous integration into to generate binaries for the yield farming bot. The Spectrum Finance on Cardano side. Correct execution bots rewards a work in progress. Optimizing the execution fees, also a work in progress. There's mempool scaling for hot order execution, and there's new optimized transaction builder. On the back end, CMC and CoinGecko integrations are work in progress. I think that something about the API they had to upgrade to or update to be able to sort of be compatible on that front. It's fixed minor bugs and made API improvements. And then on the front end, on Cardano's also fixing asynchronous validators, also a work in progress. So lots of things happening up in the air for the Spectrum boys that are working through it methodically. And next we have Captain Nemo.
All right, so it looks like Nemo's been working on Fleet SDK, added big int and serialization and parsing. With Machina Finance, working on the roadmap and designing the contracts.
There's a pretty cool thread from those guys on Twitter about the order-based, the ETXO allowing order-based indexing of basically P2P contracts. Thought it's pretty interesting. So if anyone has any interest in that, by all means, jump on there and follow that one. Okay, next we have Pulsarz and FleetSharp. So he took a look at Fleet and wrote a Sigma type serializer, deserializer based on it in C#. So should be on par with what Fleet can handle at the moment, excluding big int. The library also includes some classes to communicate with the node and Ergo address classes, and might or might not add transaction building in the future.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. More utility there for another language. ErgoMonitor has added SigmaFi order tracking to ErgoMonitor on Twitter above a certain threshold. It's created a new Telegram announcement channel for SigmaFi tracking. See that, t.me/SigmaFi alert. It also includes both new loan requests and new bonds, aka ongoing loans. Split a lot of the code in ErgoMonitor into separate packages. So SigmaFi, Spectrum, CoinGecko. So could also reuse those for building blocks in the future projects, also on GitHub. And rewrote parts of the ErgoMonitor to use all of the new libraries, leaner code base for now. And SigmaFi, so the community work. As mentioned above, made a SigmaFi library that contains all things needed to track and pass SigmaFi order bond boxes. Created an API, which is hosted on the sigmaexplorer.org. As you can see, it's a Swagger also. That has endpoints to get SigmaFi TVL, so the total lock value in SigUSD, and detailed summaries of all token and erg. So SigmaFi open orders and SigmaFi ongoing loans, including some useful filters. And I believe on that we've seen ergcube.com implement that and sort of list all the ongoing loans, etc., which is pretty cool, having it all on one little screen and be able to pass that information.
All right, looks like next we got an update from Krasivice Blasen at duckpools. That's great to see.
Yep.
Looks like an update on things as we accelerate towards our full launch. In May, we will be updating on a weekly basis as more and more targets are met. Recent advancements for duckpool phase 1 include upgradable pool design. So it looks like the interest rate algorithm, which is a function of pool utility, can now accept any polynomial up to the 5th power with custom coefficients. This enables voters to fine-tune a pool's interest algorithm. Customization of accepted forms of collateral, including the liquidation threshold, liquidation penalty, and price oracle to an extent, have been implemented and tested. This enables voters to add and adjust accepted collateral to pools. With the interest rate contract, the design finalized to extend current interest rate contract to a multi-box contract, allowing for a greater storage of interest history whilst being efficient for calculating outstanding loan balances. And for security, the preliminary analysis on beta contracts is complete, with a more thorough audit in progress alongside documentation. So I'm going to hit the dopamine duck on that one.
It's pretty cool, actually. Obviously, we see the P2P side of lending happening with SigmaFi, but good to see duckpools also ramping up and bringing their project to market, which is basically pool-based lending. Okay, next we have MGpai and Lilium. So the testnet public testing is now live. I encourage everyone to jump on there and give it a crack. Docs for testing is listed. There's a link. Also preparing for mainnet. So we'll amend Lilium metadata standard for so. On ErgoNames, the off-chain MVP is complete and working on decentralizing the bot by changing how, when local AVL trees DB syncs. So on the ErgoSapiens, so waiting on the Auction House V3 mainnet launch for minting, which will be around mid-May.
Yeah. All right, next we have Death Grips On. I always know that in my head, and I always think Deathgripson.
That's how I read it.
It's got to be Death Grips On.
Yeah.
So Analog Ergo supported the atomic multi-sig code from Scala to ErgoPi. Added chain-specific metadata to encrypted communication around messages for coordinated chain-specific pub key. So that's awesome to see.
Just plugging along there nicely. There's a little discussion here on Rosen and the time it takes that we kind of covered in the introduction. And I think finally we have soysor and Ergo tizen, Ergode or Ogre. There's a bit of speculation on which way he's going to name this. So it's renamed Ergo to Ogre after doing so realized that there's already a token project called Ogre. So may need to rename again. So I think he's got a dartboard and start throwing darts at names and
at this point, there are so many projects in the cryptocurrency space. You're gonna struggle not to have some overlap, right?
Yeah. Personally, I like Ogre. It's kind of unique and
it's Ergo backwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Fits.
Yeah. And then on the peer handling side, so added gossiping, so sends get peers message to random peers every 2 minutes, and then peer eviction also, so we'll disconnect a random peer at configured intervals, and that's to help against eclipsing. And the current goal is to get a header chain, so sync working, so the serialization of the networking messages except modifiers is done, and there's also added serialization for block headers, sync info, the INV, P for work solution, and other objects are sent over wire as part of the header sync. I think that's everything now. Just a bit of discussions and everything that sort of happens afterwards. So that sums up the weekly update. Once again, it's pretty extensive, and it's good to see a number of familiar faces in there with duckpools and a number of others coming in and providing updates. It's good to see a lot of people coming back and providing their weekly updates, which is great to see.
Yeah, it's great. Great things. There's been a lot of work, probably in the last 9 months, that's been happening in the background that's slowly creeping towards mainnet, right? And I think that once things start coming live, we're going to be in a different ecosystem pretty quick. It's just pretty cool to think about.
Yeah, most definitely. I would even probably say go back even 18 months to 2 years of worth of building that's starting to come to show its head. And there's been a couple of threads on Twitter, actually. The Sigmaverse.io Noah on there's put together a nice list, and a couple of other people in the ecosystems compiled a number of projects, and everyone who's coming to light on mainnet in a short period of time. It's pretty exciting for the ecosystem. And like you said, someone who may have stepped out for 6 months and comes back in the near future, they're going to see a completely different Ergo ecosystem, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's funny how things kind of come and go in waves. Yeah. It seems like there's a lot that's about to be pushed to mainnet. So I'm definitely excited to see and play around with some new stuff.
Yeah, definitely. All right. No more. Yeah. No dGem plays. Get the comment out for it. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Money on the top.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for tuning in this week. It's been a pleasure bringing the weekly developer update with Joe once again. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a good one.
Yep, have a good one, everybody.